All right, folks, welcome back to the Fontana podcast. This is episode 5, and this week we're going to take a little detour away from the marathon and the Achilles tendonitis talk. What I want to do is talk about my first week back to training, the baby steps that I've went through to get back to a couple of sessions now, small sessions in my training. So usually I go from a Saturday to a Friday. That's what I used to do, but now because I'm now road racing on the Sunday, I'm kind of doing a basic Monday to Sunday schedule. Beforehand, the reason I done Saturday to Friday was because if I was racing on a Saturday, I then knew exactly how many miles were in my legs that week before my race. So that's kind of how I planned my daily week when I was training on the track. So in the summertime, I'll probably go back to the Saturday, Friday routine. But just now, because most of my races are on the Sunday, I'm probably going to go to the Monday through Sunday, so I know how many miles are in my legs before then I race on the Sunday. So on the Sunday. We started with 10 miles steady. So that was the longest run I've done back since the marathon. Steady meaning it was 10 miles at 65 minutes, so it was 6:30 mile pace. Probably started around 7 minute pace per mile and got all the way down to maybe, there was a few times where it got down to about 6:10, but that was kind of running downhill. Most of the time I was sitting around about 6:20 to 6:15. The reason I didn't want to keep going 6:10s and 6 minute pace and trying to push was just I don't want to test my Achilles too much. So on the Sunday I kind of kept a lid on it as well. I was kind of blowing out my arse, to be honest. About 3 or 4 miles in, I started to feel I was getting a little bit of a stitch, but I had to save face because there was other people around me. Some of the guys, were working hard in front of me and dropping me, and I just had to, pretend it was my Achilles tendonitis. But it's probably I've put on a few kilos since I finished that marathon, so I'm carrying a wee bit of baby weight, and yeah, so kept it easy, moderately easy, and kept it steady. And that was on the Sunday. On the Monday, I done a nice easy 8 miles. That was around 7 minute mile pace, so 30 seconds slower per mile than the Sunday. That was in the AM, and in the PM on my break during work, I done a 40 minute spin as well. So I'm still trying to keep up about anywhere between an hour to 2 hours now of aerobic exercise, whether that be on the bike or me running as well. So that was my Monday session. The Tuesday was a 2 mile warm up with 4 times a mile off 90 seconds recovery at 5:40 pace with 2 miles cool down. I done all of this on the treadmill because on Tuesday morning it was a complete shit show outside, blowing a gale, pissing a rain, great Glasgow weather. So I opted for a nice cosy treadmill in the gym. The reason for that as well is because of the wet leaves. I just didn't want to aggravate my Achilles or slip or slide or anything. I just wanted to try and make it under controlled conditions and make sure that I was running at a steady pace as well, that I wasn't maybe going too fast, too slow, or I was going up or down any hills, because again that was then going to aggravate my Achilles and stop the progression of it calming down and me getting back to full training. So it's just trying to, when you're training, when you're coming back from an injury, or you've got a little niggle and you want to suppress it as quick as you can. It is brave and tough to go and fight the elements, but sometimes, it's the tough man doesn't always win the race. It's usually Haile Selassie had a great quote back in the day when he was facing Paul Tergat, and he was like, Paul Tergat is so tough, but he said it's a shame that the winner of a race doesn't always go to the toughest man. It goes to the smartest man. And sometimes I can listen to that, and sometimes my brain doesn't listen to that. But knowing how long I was out last time with this injury. I really don't want it to happen again. And that tough guy attitude has to take a back seat, and I need to be smart. So I done the Tuesday session. That was 2, 4. That was 8 miles of total volume. And again, it was 8 miles in total. There was no jog recoveries because I just jumped off the side of the treadmill, let it roll for 90 seconds, and then back on I went. On the Tuesday, I did not do a PM session just because I'd put that intensity through my Achilles, and I just wanted to make sure it recovered properly for Wednesday. And Wednesday I went out and done another 8 mile easy run, but my Achilles was kind of not angry, but just a little bit tight, a little bit not happy basically, because I'd started putting new forces through the foot, through the plantar, through the Achilles. So it wasn't a happy bunny the next day. So on out 8 miles easy. I honestly probably should have only went 6 because it wasn't quite right. But I went and done 8, nice and easy. Called it a day at that. Done some yoga in the evening, and then on Thursday I set out what I should have done the day before, and I went out and done 6 miles easy to rewrite the day before. And then on the PM session during my break, I got a 40-minute cycle done, and I done some weights as well. Stiff leg deadlifts, some STa&x isometric holds, some glute bridges, all this sort of stuff that helps hip extension and keeps me in a good position in my hips, nice alignment, and my the STa&x holds to then is the rehab work for my Achilles. Then on the Friday, on the AM session, I done 2 miles warm up, 5 times a mile off 60-second recovery at 5:40 pace again with 2 miles cool down. So in all, I've now moved from an 8 mile intense session to a 9 mile intense session, but all at the same pace. The only thing that I wanted to increase was the volume and not the intensity. So I kept everything at the same pace and just tagged on another mile. The Achilles coped really, really well with that. And because Friday's my day off, I've got a lot more time in my hands. So in the PM session, I went and done a 60-minute cycle. So I probably cycled about 22 to 23 miles there. Really sort of slightly high gear and working hard, getting a good sweat on. And then on the Saturday, because I've now went around 10 to 12 days of constant running, the smart part of my brain kicked in, and I said to my coach, you know what, I probably should take a day off today because I've tested my Achilles for a long time. We've had 2 sessions, it's all going well. There's been a wee, there was a little bit of a blip on the Wednesday where it was a little bit angry. I just spin for 40 minutes and I just done some core and yoga afterwards. So all in all, it was probably about a 75 to 80 minute session with the 40 minutes of spinning and the 40 minutes of core and yoga. So that was kind of my Sunday through to Saturday. And then now I'm looking to do, 10 miles was my longest run on Sunday last week. And then now I'm looking to go out and do about 11 to 12 miles of steady running this Sunday. So again, slowly notching it up, not too crazy, and just keep them sensible. So there's probably a few questions you've got in there, like why the weights or why the yoga. And for the weight training is quite a big part of my philosophy in terms of where endurance runners can make marginal gains, where they can help their biomechanics, they can help their power to body weight ratio, and they can also help work on things that they don't necessarily get when they're out pounding the roads. So when I'm doing weight training, I'm not doing high volume and low weights. I'm actually doing high weights, high intensity, and low volume, because that's going to work a different stimulus than what I do out in the roads. There's no point in doing more of the same thing in the same energy systems and the same muscle systems in the gym as what you do outside. So I'm a big believer. I know that, Alberto Salazar, he's a cheating bastard, and he should be chastised. But one of the things that did make sense was he would give his athletes weight training to help stimulate the fast twitch muscle fibre so they could sprint better at the finish. But also, if you've got better sprinting mechanics, then you're a lot more economical in your slower sub-maximal running. So that was something that I took from Albuterol Salazar. One of the good things that I got from him, and that was to lift heavy but lift less. And that's where, back in the day, probably, around, say, 2010, 2012, I was never known for a sprint finish. But as I started weight training in 2013 onwards, I've actually been known now for being able to finish a race very, very quick. Like, there's a lot of athletes that have known me since I first started running. And one thing that they would never, ever, ever, ever be worried about with me back in the day, up until about 2012, was my finishing speed. I just didn't have any. And nothing in my training's really, really changed in terms of, I don't do any speed work. I don't do flying 60s. I don't do flying 100s. I don't do, sprints at the end of training sessions. But what I have done is go into the weight room and work on my hamstring strength, my quad strength, my calf strength, my core strength, my glute activation. I've been working a lot on that. And what that's done is allow me to hit the ground at a lot more force. And then that translates into the power and then the velocity for me to power across the ground a lot more quicker than I used to. So that's something that I get out of weight training. That some of you guys and gals that are listening just now that could maybe benefit from doing 1 or 2 strength and conditioning sessions during the week, and supplement to your running training. But like I said, it's a supplement, so there's maybe some times where I've came back from a long time not weight training, and say I've planned in, I'm going to do 5 sets of 6 reps of heavy deadlifts, and I get to the 3rd set and my hamstrings or my adductors or my low back, say, are starting to maybe ache. I cut the session right away, because I know if I keep pushing through that, I'm now going to get really, really bad DOMs the next day, and it's going to affect my running gait cycle. And remember, the weight training is supplement to the running, and I just don't want it to affect my biomechanics, because I've done that before, and it can injure you if you're running with a different biomechanics than what you are if you're running free. So if you're stiff, you're sore, you're tight from DOMs, you kind of shorten your stride, you're less free, you're less fluid, and it's a recipe for injury. And then you're probably asking about the yoga. I only started that after the marathon. I made a little commitment to myself that I would do in December yoga every day for 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes a day. Once I get home from work, before I had dinner, I would roll out the mat, I'd go on YouTube, and I would do a little yoga session. So usually I do this yoga class, it's called Yoga with Adrian. So me and Adrian get the PlayStation on, pop on YouTube, me and Adrian for 20 minutes, have a wee yoga session. The wife's ripping the piss out of me, namaste, or was it namaste, or whatever it is. Well, she's having a wee bar of chocolate or something like that on the couch, and I'm just like, fuck off. Like, I'm trying to do this to make myself better, and she's trying to make me feel insecure, but I'm just like, nah, I'm gonna get it done. And it's been really working for me in terms of getting back a little bit quicker from the injury that I've had. Also, sometimes I have breathing problems when I'm racing. I do have asthma, but at the same time, it feels like I'm maybe a little bit more tense than normal. And a few people that have massaged my rib cage and my psoas and things say that I'm really, really tight. So one of the things that I'm trying to focus on is opening up my psoas, opening up my rib cage, opening up the abdominal area as well to create space for the diaphragm to get those deeper breaths, and also my lower back also, because I've had a lot of QL problems that have inhibited me running fast in the past. So these are just a few things that I've been doing outside of the main sort of the meat and bones of my training, my running training, and I feel that it's really benefited me physically and mentally. I really like the yoga because it helps me switch off from a long day at work. You know, maybe I've seen 8, 9, 10 clients in the one day. I've also done, 2 training sessions as well. Sometimes it can build up on me, the stress, the anxiety, the phone constantly going, cancellations, rearranging, Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, like you're just completely contactable 24/7. So sometimes it's nice just to turn the phone over, turn it in silent, get it away from me, and just crack out the mat and just focus on my breath, focus on the stretches, and kind of be in the present for a little bit. So that's something that I've found that's actually been quite helpful for me, coping with the stress of life, the stress of training, and help me sort of stay in the present. So a little short podcast just to tell you about my week. There hopefully is some useful tips in there on why I do certain things. Again, it's why I do certain things. You guys out there might do something completely different. You might think my training is a pile of shit and you don't want to do any of it, then that's completely fine. But if there's people out there that have heard some things that I've spoke about, really enjoyed it, thought that I've gained a little bit of knowledge to then implement into their training, then awesome. The treadmill stuff, if we recap over what I've spoke about, the treadmill, if it's windy and wet or if it's icy, I'm not going to go and brave the elements just in case I tweak my Achilles. So if you get an injury at your hamstring or calf or Achilles or plantar, you maybe want to play it safe and stay indoors and go on the treadmill under controlled conditions. The weight training to help your power to body weight ratio, help that power, help your sprint speed. Then also your biomechanics, and then a bit of yoga, because as runners, if we're running all the time, we get pretty stiff, we get pretty rigid, we're not as fluid maybe after, a 100-mile week on, week, it can build up in the body, make us really stiff, really tight, really tense, shorten our running stride, and we just want to maybe open that back up so we can get a full hip extension, get those glutes activated, and also help our breathing as well, sort of staying calm within the madness of life and work and training and trying to aspire to, want to be better. It can be quite a stressful thing. So yoga is sort of that little time where I can press the stop button and just be there with my own thoughts and sort of refresh my mind and my body. All right, so if you found it insightful, give it a wee like, share it, subscribe, and then that means that you're going to be able to get notifications for when, the next podcast come out. So thank you very much for listening. I'm really happy with the comments and the feedback I've been receiving so far through Instagram and Facebook. I'm really, really, grateful that you're taking the time and effort to listen to this, but also to reach back out to me and say, thank you very much for this podcast or that podcast. It's really humbling, and it makes me feel that I'm actually doing something. I'm not just sort of talking to this phone and uploading some pile of shit that nobody wants to listen to. I'm really, really happy that people are learning and benefiting from these, and also getting to know me as a person and as an athlete as well. It's really, really good to see the human side to somebody, and not just the sort of maybe the arrogant, brash guy that you see throwing his hands up across the line whenever he wins a race, or kicking a Lucozade bottle or a water bottle at the end of a race when shit hits the fan and it doesn't go my way. So it's just to let you guys know that running and the human side are completely different. All right, you guys take it easy, and I'll speak to you soon. See ya.